From the year 2002 to 2007, Kaiju fans were blessed with a slew of awesome giant monster games. This was the era of War of the Monsters, the Pipeworks Godzilla trilogy, and Rampage Total Destruction. If you were a young gamer in the early 2000s like myself, these titles were childhood defining and literally the perfect games for young Kaiju fans. This roster of games still holds up today, and in my opinion, it's where Kaiju games peaked. Let's take a step back a few console generations and check out these games. Welcome to Casual Perspective, Hayden here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the golden era of giant monster games. Kicking things off with a bang, we have the oldest of these games and perhaps the most well-known, Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee. Releasing in October of 2002, Destroy All Monsters was the first of the Pipeworks developed Godzilla games. This was a GameCube exclusive until an Xbox version was later released. Unfortunately, it never had a PS2 release, which was devastating for young Hayden, as the PlayStation 2 was the only console I had growing up. So playing it for this video was actually my first time ever playing this one. It feels like I finally fulfilled a lost childhood dream. For context, I've basically had a Godzilla boner since birth. Here's my 3 separate copies of Godzilla -1 for proof. I fuck heavily with this boy. That being said, Destroy All Monsters definitely earns the Godzilla nerd seal of approval. This is a proper-ass Godzilla game. On the GameCube version I played, we have a roster of 11 monsters, all legit Toho monsters, with the Xbox version of the game also including Kiryu, or Mechagodzilla 3. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but fuck it. The roster is awesome, but there's a lot of monsters absent, mainly Mothra. But her and Hedorah are still in the game as unplayable AI characters, flying around being douchebags. Destroy All Monsters is a game about Godzilla and the other Toho monsters kicking the pussy-loving shit out of each other, and that's all. If that sounds awesome to you, well, it is. It fucking rules. The game has a pick-up and play level of complexity, which is great for casually playing with friends. It legit feels like you're playing with a toy when you play this. The combat does have some depth if you really want to dig in and master a monster. Every monster is a similar moveset. You have kicks, punches, fierce attacks like tail whips and other shit, grabs and throws, beam attacks, and special moves exclusive to certain monsters. It's a simple moveset, but there's a lot of variation with the direction of the analog stick determining the actual attack performed. These fights take place in various cities which are all fully destructible. It's awesome. Smaller buildings and environment pieces can be picked up and thrown at your opponent. Classic shit. You'll also see various military units coming to attack you mid-fight, including these tanks which freeze your ass. There's a handful of different game modes, with the adventure mode being a story mode of sorts. It's a classic-style Showa-era Godzilla plot, and the game is incredibly self-aware of that. Maybe too self-aware, it actually kind of feels like a parody.
Am I still on? Oh.
This alien dude is essentially like, yeah, we're here to steal Earth's resources and unleash monsters on you, and that's kind of our whole thing.
And plunder its resources for our own purposes. It's what we do.
Goofy stuff, but very on brand for the sillier side of Godzilla. But then the adventure mode is just a series of fights until you eventually defeat Mechagodzilla or Mecha King Ghidorah, and that's it. That's probably this game's biggest downfall, is there's just not a lot of variety here. The only thing different is the destruction mode, where you win by destroying the city and earning points, not by defeating the other monster. Other than that, it's just good old monster fighting action. I think this game is best played with friends, especially if you have a lot of them, as the game supports up to 4 players. Fighting the AI repeatedly just isn't the same as sharing a screen with a buddy and button mashing away at each other. It gets old pretty quick, but it's a proper good time for the first hour or so.
Get him, get him, get him, get him! Oh shit. I don't even know what I just did.
Destroy All Monsters Melee is a solid first outing for Pipeworks and the beginning of their Godzilla fighting game trilogy. There's not a ton to do or see in this one, but it's simple, focused, and above all, good old Godzilla fuck around fun. I'm sad that I didn't get to experience this one as a kid, but not too sad, as I did get to play the next game in the trilogy.
Godzilla saved the Earth.
Haha, not so fast, eager McBeaver.
First, we have another game to talk about that came out just a few months after Destroy All Monsters. Just 3 short months after the release of Destroy All Monsters, War of the Monsters was released to the masses on January 14th, 2003. Yeah, feel old yet? War of the Monsters is old enough to legally drink in the United States now. For those of us who grew up with this game, War of the Monsters is the GOAT. Just ask my buddy Sean.
War of the Monsters is the GOAT.
War of the Monsters takes us back to the 1950s and the giant monster aesthetic of that time. It's a similar vibe to older movies like Them, War of the Worlds, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, and The Blob. This certainly gives War of the Monsters a unique look compared to the other games. Check out the drive-in movie theater menu screens and snack bar settings menu. Fucking awesome. Now, just like Destroy All Monsters, War of the Monsters is straight up monster shit-whipping fun time. This game has a roster of 10 all-original monsters, kind of. Some of these are very much homages to other famous monsters like Godzilla and King Kong. Totally fine with me. It almost feels like a best of giant monsters roster. We even get a couple of robots and mechs thrown in the mix. Every monster's move list is pretty consistent across the roster, with slight variations here and there. Every monster has a projectile, melee combos, grappling, close and far special attacks, jumping, and in some cases flying. While giant monster fights is still the name of the game here, War of the Monsters executes on the idea in a lot of unique ways. For starters, the monsters aren't overly massive in this one, so the cities themselves act like big jungle gyms with the buildings being climbable. This gives these maps and the gameplay a nice sense of verticality. It's cool, it feels like you're fighting in the city, not on it. You can also see and crush all the puny humans panicking in the streets. Fuck yeah. Destruction and interactivity is also special. Everything is destructible, and when something like a building topples, it can actually crush you or your opponents, as well as creating all kinds of rubble that can actually be picked up and thrown. Because of the smaller monster size, basically everything you see in the city is throwable or wieldable as a weapon. There's multiple different environment pieces that can be thrown, and some of these have their own unique effects. Radio towers act as spears that actually impale and disable your opponent. Hey Butters, what do you think of that?
Neato. Well, this is good.
On top of this, there are also different environment events that can be activated during a match. Things like tsunamis, activating a volcano to rain down lava rocks, and nuclear reactor overloads. All these different elements give the combat more depth and give the player more options on how to approach a fight. Want to focus on melee and brawling? You can do that. Want to jump from building to building, maintaining the high ground and attacking from a distance? You can do that. Sure, some playstyles are going to be more effective than others, but it's cool that the options are there, and that's all part of why War of the Monsters is so unique and remembered fondly. Now, such is life, there are also plenty of things here that suck all kinds of dick and balls. The first offender is the controls/camera. The controls are just strange. There's a camera lock-on function where you'll stay focused on one opponent, which is useful for firing projectiles and landing melee attacks. But what this means is you'll basically always be holding down L1 and R1, which is how you lock the camera. Fighting without being locked on is possible, but much harder, especially with how fast everything moves. Another annoyance is the button to fire projectiles is the same button as a standard melee attack, and which attack you do is determined by range. So sometimes you'll punch when you meant to shoot, or you'll shoot when you were trying to punch.
I don't want to shoot, I want to fucking punch him.
All of this paired with that camera that really feels like it's out to get you just makes for a hemorrhoid-inducing experience.
Bro, the camera!
I was playing with the default control scheme, so maybe some of this is better on the other layouts. I don't know. My next grievance is with the bosses. The adventure mode comes complete with 3 different boss fights. Now, I have no problem with boss fights, and I actually like that they're included, but these fights are tedious, rage-inducing, and overall just not that fun. Easily the biggest offender for me is this robot fuck, Goliath Prime. His fight is my least favorite of the bunch by far.
What the fuck? Dude, holy fuck. God damn it.
I feel like the idea and concept behind each fight is cool, but they could have been done better.
Like, not pointing the fingers. They could have been done better.
Okay, last thing. A lot of the time in the adventure mode, you'll be fighting multiple monsters at once, usually at 2v1. This is fine, but honestly, the enemy AI is pretty tough and more than capable of providing a challenge. I never even tried the hardest difficulty. Medium was plenty. Now, the problem with the AI is they like to run away like pussy assholes and look for health when they're near death. I'd finally whittle one of them down to low health, only for the other monster to come in and start fighting me while their teammate ran away and healed up. This is especially annoying for monsters like Praetor, who are fast and can literally fly away from you to go heal. Trying to deal with this literally had me yelling at the game, even on the easiest difficulty.
Dude! Come fucking here! Oh my fucking god!
I was not expecting to get so fired up while playing these games, but god damn, the War of the Monsters AI really knows how to rile me up. Alright, enough negativity. Everything I just mentioned are just little wrinkles on what's overall a very well ironed pair of pants. War of the Monsters is great and unlike any other monster fighting game, or just fighting game in general that I've ever played. So many cool ideas in this one. Of course, there is multiplayer as well, and as expected, it's a ton of fun. Not the kind of thing you could play for hours on end, but perfect for a night with the boys just motherfucking each other. I'm gonna go put this in the pile of other games that also deserve a remaster. Alrighty, moving right along, it's back to Godzilla with the second game in the Pipeworks Godzilla trilogy, Godzilla Save the Earth. This one dropped on November 2nd of 2004, and unlike Destroy All Monsters, this motherfucker got a PS2 release. I played this one until my fingers hurt as a kid. I remember buying it with my mom at Target, and the electronics employee was telling us about how awesome it was. I don't think we asked the dude, but that's a core memory of mine. Save the Earth is basically a Destroy All Monsters 2.0. More monsters, bigger arenas, more game modes, and more cheesy storylines.
Greetings, pathetic Earthlings.
The new roster is probably my favorite upgrade from Destroy All Monsters. All the previous monsters return with the addition of Mothra, Baragon, Megaguirus, Mogira, Space Godzilla, Mechagodzilla 3, playable on all versions this time, and last but not least, the boy, the man, that dude,
Jet Jaguar.
Jet Jaguar, Jet Jaguar, Yatta Jaguar.
That's what I'm talking about. Even with this massive improvement to the roster, there are still unfortunately some notable omissions. No love for King Caesar, Titanosaurus, Showa-era Mechagodzilla, Hedorah, Biollante. I told you I'm a Godzilla slut. Biollante was actually supposed to be in this one and was fully completed, but scrapped from the final version of the game because, according to Wikizilla, Atari was unable to get the license in time. Some nerds somehow managed to get her working through emulating the PS2, but that shit's way over my head. Anyways, this is still very much the same game as Destroy All Monsters with a lot of improvements across the board. Still good old monster shit-whipping fun. The arenas are noticeably bigger this time around with a lot more throwable buildings and objects. Some objects are even wieldable as weapons now, and I don't know what these pillars are made out of, but look at this shit.
That's so OP.
Another new addition is clashing beam attacks. This is a cool new mechanic with a bit of a learning curve. It's basically a big game of rock, paper, scissors with 3 different buttons you can press to counter the other colors. Knowing what color counters what is key. I always lose these fucking things. The fights also seem to last a bit longer this time around, which I appreciate. It just seems to take a bit longer to whittle down that health bar. Overall though, the moves list and flow of the fights is still more or less the same, but hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This style of fighting game was fun in Destroy All Monsters, and it's still fun here. One of the biggest new additions to Save the Earth are the challenges. These are mini games thrown in between fights in the story mode. Some of these are goofy as hell. Ever wanted to play Godzilla basketball or monster bowling? Others make a bit more sense, like destroying as much of a city as possible within a time limit or defending a building from UFOs. But easily the coolest of all of these are the undersea battle and asteroid field challenges. These are unlike anything else in the game. In undersea battle, you play as Godzilla actually swimming in the ocean, dodging mines and destroying submarines. You then get to fight Ebra from the 1966 Godzilla film. This fight is pretty lame, but it's really awesome that Ebra is in the game at all. The whole thing concludes with a fight against the Vortak Hammer sub. Also not a great fight, but I don't care. This whole level is Godzilla nerd boner fuel. I had no idea this was in the game until I made this video, so it was so cool playing this for the first time. Remember that Target employee from earlier? Well, when we were buying the game, he mentioned being able to swim underwater as Godzilla, but as a kid, I never knew this challenge was in the game, so my whole life I've been wondering why that dude said that. This is some nice closure, now I know. I'm pretty sure this challenge only triggers if you play the action mode as Godzilla 2000 on hard, so that's probably why I never unlocked it as a kid. Anyways, we also have this Mogira asteroid field challenge. Similar idea here, only this time you're playing as Mogira in space, flying through asteroids, shooting UFOs, and finally fighting Space Godzilla to conclude the challenge. Honestly, all the challenges in this game are janky as fuck, but this one takes the cake. Right off rip, we're greeted with a missing skybox, and it's not even like a blink and you'll miss it type thing. Like, you can straight up see the edge for most of the level. And then the fight with Space Godzilla, like Ebra and the Hammer sub, it's not that good of a fight, but look how goofy Space Godzilla looks. It's like they just took his character model and cut the legs off. To be fair, he does look like this in the space scene in the movie, but the silliness is ramped up even higher here.
No legs. No legs, Lieutenant Dan.
So yeah, this stuff isn't exactly good. In fact, it's pretty bad, but for the Godzilla nuts, these challenges are charming fan service and a nice way to break up the back-to-back fights in the story mode. There's a lot of variety in Save the Earth. It's not all good variety, but it's there. Personally, compared to Destroy All Monsters, I like the fights in Save the Earth more, but I could understand why someone would prefer Destroy All Monsters. They're both very similar, but they do feel different. I saw a Reddit comment describing Destroy All Monsters as feeling heavier, and yeah, I think that's fair. You really can't go wrong with either of them though, especially if you're playing with friends. The local multiplayer with this is as fun as ever.
Stop that. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
No. Well played, well played.
Save the Earth doesn't reinvent the Destroy All Monsters wheel, but it's a proper iteration on an already solid foundation, and definitely my favorite of the trilogy.
Holy fuck.
Now let's hope Pipeworks can stick the landing with the third game. But before we talk about the final Godzilla game, we need to put down our boxing gloves and turn our attention towards destruction. Total destruction. Rampage, total destruction. Releasing in April of 2006 and also developed by Pipeworks. War of the Monsters is the only game in this video not developed by Pipeworks. Holy shit. Rampage Total Destruction is the final installment in the long-running Rampage series. Technically, there's an arcade cabinet based on the 2018 movie that's come out since, but I don't count that. Total Destruction is the last proper Rampage game, at least currently. This game is unique in this batch of monster games as this one is not about monster fighting, but instead destroying cities. After all this monster fighting talk, this should be a nice palate cleanser. So yeah, in Rampage, you're playing as one of the many monsters who are actually humans mutated by a new soda. Scum Soda. The funny part about this is basically all the monsters have people names like George, Ralph, Nick, or Kyle. The PS2 and GameCube versions feature 30 different monsters, while the Wii version, which released a few months later, features 40. A neat detail here is in the opening cutscene, these dudes are talking about how many people tried and were mutated by Scum Soda. In the GameCube and PS2 versions, they say 30.
So what you're saying is that we've got 30 of these monsters running around loose somewhere?
While in the Wii version, they say 40. And you can even hear where they spliced in this new dialogue.
So what you're saying is that we've got 40 of these monsters running around loose somewhere?
It's janky, but cool that they actually adjusted the cutscene to account for the new monsters. Because all these monsters are just mutated people, when you die in the game, you revert back to human form, naked as the day you were born, until eventually mutating back into a monster. Pretty funny, and that's a trend with Rampage. There's a lot of goofy shit going on here, but we'll get to that. How Rampage works is you enter a city and progress by destroying individual city blocks until you've cleared the entire city, with roughly 8 to 10 blocks per city. City. This means destroying everything on each block within a certain time constraint. You do this by mounting each building and destroying individual sections until the entire thing collapses. The buildings themselves contain all kinds of different items like food, which replenishes your health, humans that you can eat, hazards like fire or water pipes that actually damage and knock you off the buildings, bad food items that damage you if you eat them, power-ups, bonus points, and new monster unlocks. The strategy here is eating and collecting the good stuff while avoiding the bad stuff and still destroying the buildings fast enough. All the while managing your health, as you can die and you do have limited lives, and you'll game over if you run out of lives before destroying the entire city block. This idea that you could even fail a level by dying or running out of time really didn't make any sense to me when I started playing, as the first few cities are super easy. However, once I hit Chicago, this all changed. You'll be dealing with the military and police throughout the game, and they're mostly just a minor annoyance until you reach these later cities where they are literally everywhere, trying to stop your giant ass. Soldiers lining the streets, shooting you from inside the buildings, tanks blasting you off the buildings, helicopters swarming you, bombers bombing the fuck out of you. It gets ridiculous. Pair this with the supply of food in buildings becoming more rare while the hazards become more common, and goddamn, Rampage ended up being a pretty tough game in the end. I really do enjoy a challenge, but the issue here is the control with these monsters is not as tight as it needs to be with this much shit going on. There were plenty of moments where I struggled to take out individual soldiers that were fucking me up or failed to swat helicopters out of the air even though I clearly hit them, and other things like this that require precision. Unfortunately, controls just don't allow for that precision. The monsters consistently don't do what you're intending. It really feels like you're a big, dumb, clueless fuck fumbling around everywhere, which is neat and fits the game, but makes these hard stages oh so rage-inducing.
Why are you jumping that far away, you dumb fuck? Bitch! Holy fucking cock. Oh, God, I'm ready to be done with this one. How is this somehow making me more mad than fucking Halo 2?
Yeah, never again. I think the medium difficulty cities are where the game shined the brightest and struck the best balance between challenging and fun. Now, I don't know much about the Rampage series as a whole, but I know humor is a staple of the series and total destruction is no different. Allow me to introduce you to this game's loading screen. Yes, that is a different fart and burp sound effect for each face button on the controller. Stupid shit like this goes a long way with immature dorks like me. While playing, if you eat someone, your monster will either burp or fart, and your fart can actually boost your jump if you time it right. Also, these humans on the streets all have different kinds of dialogue and are talking constantly in each stage.
Hey, what?
My favorite is the obvious Arnold Schwarzenegger impression from the Grenadier Soldiers.
What are you waiting for? I'm right here!
You can stomp out old ladies, eat an entire bus of people like a bag of chips, comically slip and fall in a fountain. It's great. There's all kinds of funny little details like this throughout the game, and it does a lot to make the whole experience more enjoyable. At least for me it does. I'ma keep farting in the loading screen. As a nice bonus, Total Destruction includes emulated copies of both the original Rampage from 1986 and Rampage World Tour from 1997. These were the first two games in the series, and it's awesome to play these and see where everything started. I didn't have much fun with the original, but World Tour was sick and has a lot of charm to it. The inclusion of these really adds to the value of Total Destruction, and it acts as a nice little buffet of Rampage games. Lastly, there are multiplayer modes, but this is basically just co-op, either working together to destroy cities or going head-to-head to see who can destroy the city better or score more points. It's more of the same shit, but it's cool that co-op is even an option.
Oh wow, we got tied.
That's crazy.
Overall, Rampage is a cool one, and it really shakes things up with its humor and focus on city destruction instead of fighting. Total Destruction is nearly 20 years old now. Hopefully we can get a new Rampage game soon. Well. Here we are, fellow nerds. The final game in this lineup of legendary kaiju games. Let's light this fuse and go out with a bang. Ooh, okay. Alright, I'll cut to the chase. This game released as a Wii exclusive and has motion controls, and that kinda sucks. Okay, we got that out of the way. This is Godzilla Unleashed, the final game in the Pipeworks Godzilla trilogy. This one dropped in November of 2007 and is no doubt the black sheep of the trilogy. A lot of fans love it, a lot of fans absolutely hate it. This was my first time playing it, as my family was one of the 12 families in the United States that didn't own a Wii. Seriously, it felt like everybody owned one of these damn things. There is a PS2 version, but it's not the same game at all. From my research, it's basically a buggy, worse version of Save the Earth, and not at all like the Wii version of Unleashed. Long story short, the main intended version of Godzilla Unleashed is only available on the Wii. From my fresh, casual perspective, there's a lot to love with this one and plenty to hate. Let's dive in. Firstly, Godzilla Unleashed has one hell of a roster. Not only does every previous monster from Save the Earth return, but remember all those more obscure Toho monsters I listed earlier? Yeah, well, they all got added. Well, almost all. Hedorah was still left on the cutting room floor, making it exclusive to Destroy All Monsters, flying around farting everywhere. But we finally got Biollante, King Caesar, Titanosaurus, OG Showa Mechagodzilla, and others that weren't even on my bingo card. Godzilla 1954? Hell yeah. Varan? So sick. Obsidious? Fuck yeah. Wait a minute.
Who the heck are you?
Yeah, this roster is amazing and covers nearly every Toho monster ever, but also slips in two new original monsters. Obsidious.
Oh, sick! Gross!
And Crystalak.
Ah, nasty! Yuck!
Damn you, Godzilla Unleashed, you almost stuck the landing. I personally hate these two new monsters, and I really don't want to say anything more about them. They are skid marks on what is otherwise a perfect pair of tighty whities. Do what I do and just pretend they aren't there. So yeah, overall, this roster is just a labor of love to Godzilla fans, and it's probably the biggest reason anyone should play this. It's the most complete collection of Toho monsters in any Godzilla game ever. Okay, so the roster is a massive plus, but the content offering is solid here as well. This game does get rid of challenges from Save the Earth, which is unfortunate. They could have made a whole new batch of them and actually put the motion controls to use in an interesting way. Maybe. It might have sucked. But what we get instead is an actual proper story mode this time, and multiple different game modes, as well as the ability to create your own custom modes. Creating your own mode is exclusive to this game, and it's an awesome addition. You can change things like player attributes, victory conditions, military settings, and crystal powers. Yeah, we'll get to the crystals. There's actually a lot of options here. I made a stupid one with all mini jet jaguars with super speed and max health regeneration, and an arena filled with full aggression military units. This right here is just stupid fuck around fun. I nearly pissed myself when I picked up this building. This is the kind of thing I could have spent all day playing with my friends as a kid, just making silly game modes and trying out different settings. It's a great addition. Finally, the arenas got even bigger again and are really creative this time around. Honestly, I kind of like the more grounded aesthetic of just fighting in a regular old city, but at least there's some imagination behind these and they tried something new. Unfortunately, my praise for this game is going to stop right there. Credit where credit is due, Godzilla Unleashed does a lot right, but boy howdy does it also shit the bed in spectacular fashion. Right away, this game's cover art is a clear indicator that something has gone awry. Look at how lame this is compared to the others.
I call it bold and brash. More like belongs in the trash.
Okay, so that story mode I mentioned earlier. Yeah, it's cool and actually feels like a proper campaign, but it also drags on. It's basically a random mishmash of fights and some of the worst cutscenes and voice acting I've ever seen in a game. Look at how ridiculous this is.
Spare me the details, Shiragami. I'm not paying you to make bio lattes here. I need that bio-agent, Doctor, and I need it weaponized.
Supposedly the original idea for this was much more ambitious, with different outcomes depending on which monster you picked and your performance throughout the game. Development issues and time constraints butchered the fuck out of this. What we get is just a sad shell of what could have been. Is that fucking Cortana?
Yes. Earth's guardian monsters must know that the crystals are harming the planet. The Earth is their home, and they will protect it by destroying them.
When you're actually in the game, the combat is still the same idea as the previous entries, with a lot of changes, and I legit feel like all of these changes make the game worse. Health can now recharge and consists of different blocks of health that can only be fully depleted with a heavy attack or some shit like that. Beam attacks now have to be charged manually and are just dog shit. I don't know if it's intentional, but these just miss constantly, and you basically have to barrel stuff your opponent to get it to hit. Not good. There's like a grappling mechanic now when you go to throw an enemy. I don't like it. Okay, and now the moment I've all been waiting for. These damn shit dick motion controls.
Isn't he scary?
Not every attack is tied to a motion input, but the majority of them are. Only the standard punches and kicks aren't. It's like in the previous games when you move the analog stick along with a button push to get different attacks. Now it's a button push plus swinging the Wiimote in a direction. You're gonna be swinging this shit around like a fucking dumbass. This is like the motion control equivalent of button mashing. Wanna pick up an object or an enemy? Motion controls. Wanna jump? Motion controls. It's not like they're unresponsive, but they aren't precise, and their inclusion completely dumbs down the combat. It just doesn't feel good to play, and that sucks. I probably would have loved this as a youngster, but now as a serious adult gamer with no time for such childish nonsense, I want to just press buttons. I don't want to move my body. Finally, there's these crystals all over the place in the arenas. These are part of the game's story, I guess. It's all very confusing and poorly explained, if at all. I still don't really understand these. I know the yellow ones fully recharge your energy if you destroy them, and if you destroy enough of these other ones, you get big and red. I don't know. Again, there's probably a cool idea here, but the implementation is so poor that it becomes yet another nail in the coffin for Unleashed. Overall, the game just feels rushed and didn't fully realize its potential. There was definitely a sick-ass Godzilla game in here somewhere. It was just unfortunately fucked into a mess during development. Honestly though, the roster is so great that it still makes this game worth checking out, especially if you're a virginity-wielding Godzilla fan like me. This is unfortunately the only game in the lineup that I didn't get to play multiplayer on, as I only have one Wiimote. Yeah, I couldn't be bothered to get another one. This one is so bad that I feel like it actually could be good for local multiplayer, especially with the ability to create the custom game modes. Everybody swinging their controller around like idiots talking shit. Nothing like getting fucked up with the boys and busting out Godzilla Unleashed for the Nintendo Wii. That's a good night right there. Okay. I hope you've all enjoyed this safari through the golden era of giant monster games, and what an adventure it was.
Eat the fucking guitar guy.
Admittedly, this is not a definitive list. Peter Jackson's King Kong game from 2005 could have easily slotted in here as well. Too bad there isn't a charming YouTuber out there that made a video about that game. Please go watch my King Kong video. I think it's one of my best, and it only got like 100 views. Thanks. I was also made aware of a handful of Ultraman games for the PS2 as well. Those likely would have also fit right into this video. It's not like Kaiju games just stopped after this either. There's actually been quite a few since. There's the Terror of Hemisaurus, the PS3, PS4 Godzilla game, Gigabash, the recent Kong games, and Dawn of the Monsters, to name a few. I've played none of these, so maybe I should. Gigabash in particular seems to be a spiritual successor to the Pipeworks style Godzilla games. There's even official Godzilla characters as DLC. I've also seen Godzilla show up for special events or DLC in other games, so that's cool. My hope is we get a new official Godzilla game in the style of the old Pipeworks games, or maybe something even better. War of the Monsters seems like a no-brainer for a remaster or sequel, and a new Rampage game would be so sick with modern game physics and destruction tech. Fingers fucking crossed. So, are there any games that should have been in this video that I failed to mention? What's your favorite Kaiju game? Would you also let Jet Jaguar give you a piggyback ride? Get down to that comment section and let me know. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Later, nerds.
Guy, no! I'm chicken.